It's 7 p.m. and it's time to call this EPC meeting of November 5th, 2025 to order. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Environmental Planning Commission meeting of November 5th, 2025. For those joining us in person, please note that due to our hybrid environment, audio and video presentations can no longer be shared from the lectern. Requests to show an audio or video presentation during the meeting should be directed to epc@mountainview.gov by 4:30 p.m. on the meeting date. Additionally, due to our hybrid environment, we will no longer have speakers line up to speak on an item. Anyone wishing to address the EPC in person must complete a yellow speaker card. Please indicate the name you would like to be called by when it is your turn to speak and the item number on which you wish to speak. Please complete one yellow speaker card for each item on which you wish to speak and turn them into the EPC clerk as soon as possible, but no later than the call for public comment on the item you are speaking on. Instructions for addressing the commission virtually may be found on the posted agenda. Now I will ask the EPC clerk to proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Here.
Commissioner Donahue?
Here.
Commissioner Yin?
Here.
Commissioner Cranston?
Here.
Commissioner Pham?
Here.
Vice Chair Nunez?
Here.
And Chair Gutierrez.
Here.
All commissioners are present.
Great, thank you, clerk. Excuse me. Before we get started with today's business, please note the city is recruiting applicants for appointments to the Parks and Recreation Commission, the Downtown Committee, Downtown Property Owner and/or business representatives in the downtown area, and the Senior Advisory Committee. Applications are due by 5 p.m. on November 6th, which is tomorrow. So if you're interested, by all means, please apply. Moving on now to Section 3, Minutes Approval, 3.1. We should be approving the Environmental Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 5th, 2025. Let's start off with EPC discussion. Do we have any? Being that we don't have any, do we have any public comment? If anyone in attendance would like to provide comments on the minutes, please fill out a yellow speaker card and provide it to the EPC clerk. If anyone on Zoom would like to provide comment on the minutes, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. EPC clerk.
We do not have any speakers online or in person.
Great. Thank you, sir. I need a motion to approve the minutes. And the motion should state, approve the Environmental Planning Commission minutes of February 5th, 2025. I'll make the motion to approve the Environmental Planning Commission minutes. Here we go. Oh, I don't have that on. Here, let's see. Okay, the mover is Bill Cranston, and the second is Hank Dempsey. Thank you, sirs, to approve the Environmental Planning Commission minutes of February 5th, 2025.
I need to read it again.
Now we'll vote. EPC clerk, mine says no signal detected, but I like to vote yes.
The motion passes with all the commissioners yay.
Great, thank you, sir. Moving on to Section 4, oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the EPC on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during the section. State law prohibits the commission from acting on non-agenda items. If anyone in attendance would like to provide comments on non-agenda items, please fill out a yellow speaker card and provide it to the EPC clerk. If anyone on Zoom would like to provide a comment on non-agenda items, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. EPC clerk.
We have 2 attendees online.
Great, so we'll do 3 minutes each.
Sorry, 1 second. First up is Robert Cox. Robert, you may speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Robert Cox here speaking on behalf of Livable Mountain View. On Monday, October 27th, representatives of our organization met with community development staff at their invitation. We spoke about the impact SB 79 could have on our downtown historic retail district and explained how adopting an SB 79 local alternative plan could preserve the district. We are advocating that consideration of such a local alternative plan be done quickly. SB 79 will become state law on July 1st, 2026. The SB 79 text outlines the adoption process for a local alternative plan, noting that a review process can take as long as 6 months and 2 weeks. Palo Alto has authorized moving forward their local alternative plan on October 22nd. Los Angeles expects their local alternative plan to be submitted to California HCD by mid-February. Staff advised us that missing the July 1st deadline could leave Mountain View open to the default SB 79 provisions, which include no protections for the downtown historic retail district. Therefore, we are asking the EPC agendize a vote to recommend to council to move forward on an SB 79 local alternative plan. Work on the dependent work items like the Moffett Precise Plan, Downtown Precise Plan, and Historic Ordinance Register update should be suspended until the SB 79 local alternative plan is submitted. This will make available resources to complete the local alternative plan in a timely fashion. If needed, consultants could be hired to support this effort. As was seen in the sixth cycle housing element, missing a deadline can have serious consequences. Thank you for listening to our request.
Next, we have Bruce England. Bruce, you should be able to unmute.
Yep, I did. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive, speaking as a member of Green Spaces Mountain View. On the 29th of October at the PRC meeting, a proposal was heard about ADU installments at 151 Calderon, which is near Evelyn and right next to Stevens Creek. The commissioners there were concerned, very concerned, I would say, about the idea of putting ADUs in such an environmentally sensitive area. And yet state law allows the developer, in this case Avalon Bay, to do such a thing. Because state law allows this, it pretty much tied their hands. They had to go ahead and approve the project. But I spoke at the city council meeting the other night. I just wanted to tell you also as an FYI that I think it's worth the city pursuing to find out how the state law might be modified to ensure that everybody knows what an ADU is. Because if you can just put any dwelling unit anywhere you want and you call it an ADU, regardless of any definition of what an ADU is, then that opens the door to all kinds of things similar to the builder's remedy problem that you're familiar with. So I'm hoping that the city will talk with our representatives at the state level, Becker and Berman, about this and use their legislative analyst consultant to look into it. I don't know if they will, but like I said, I'm just letting you know that that happened at the PRC meeting and I brought it up the other night at council as well. Thanks.
There are no more speakers.
Thank you, Clerk. We'll move on to Section 5, Public Hearing, 5.1, Housing Element Program. Excuse me. 1.1, parens G, Zoning Precise Plan and General Plan Amendments. We will take this item through a special deliberation process due to Commissioner conflicts of interest. First, we will have a staff presentation, then public comment. At the closure of public comment, the Commission will discuss individual topics, including any questions about those topics. Let's begin with a staff presentation from Senior Planner Krisha Pinalar and Planning Manager Eric Anderson.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Krisha Pinoyar, Senior Planner, and I'm joined today with Eric Anderson, Planning Manager, and we're here to present this item. At today's meeting, we'll be reviewing the proposed amendments to implement Program 1.1G of the housing element. The housing element rezoning sites and densities are shown here, and as a reminder, the Moffett Boulevard will be completed as a separate project through the Moffett Boulevard Precise Plan, and the program has a housing element deadline of December 31st of this year. At previous meetings, the Environmental Planning Commission and City Council reviewed the proposed general plan, precise plan, and zoning approaches presented tonight. City Council expressed support for a general plan mixed-use village center land use approach for the sites as shown in blue on the map. This approach would help preserve locally serving businesses, would avoid making existing uses non-conforming, and would also support placemaking and transition strategies. The City Council also supported a flexible precise plan approach for the remainder sites as shown in orange, which would allow site-specific language to allow the densities and character appropriate for the area. Additionally, Council directed staff to study opportunities to prevent small business displacement that could result from redevelopment. And on September 24, 2025, the Santa Clara County Airport Land Use Commission reviewed the Evandale Precise Plan and Mountain View Transit Center, as these areas are in the airport influence area. And at the meeting, ALUC found the proposed general plan, precise plan, and zoning amendments consistent with the adopted Moffett Federal Airfields Comprehensive Land Use Plan. As a reminder, the general plan mixed-use village center land use is a set of existing mixed-use development policies that preserve the existing commercial zoning, but allows opportunities for multifamily housing. The location for these developments are determined by the general plan through mixed-use designations. However, the zoning districts remain commercial, including commercial office, commercial services, and commercial neighborhoods, with general plan mixed-use village center developments as the only residential use allowed in these commercial zones. The development standards for this use is established in the zoning ordinance or precise plans and include requirements such as ground floor commercial, public plazas, transition standards, and pedestrian connections. In summary, this approach utilizes existing mechanisms to preserve existing commercial businesses without the need to create a new mixed-use district. This does not change the underlying zoning, avoids non-conformances for existing developments, and creates a pathway for residential development consistent with the general plan's village center policies. And this slide is intended to review the proposed general plan map and text amendments. The sites proposed for general plan mixed-use village center land use approach are shown in blue, and orange shows the flexible precise plan approach with the corresponding general plan amendments. And as stated earlier, the general plan determines locations of general plan mixed-use village center. As such, the Evandale, Miramonte, Cuesta, and Calderon sites require general plan amendments to a mixed-use designation. General mixed-use land use designation is proposed for the Evandale Precise Plan to allow densities of 43 dwelling units per acre. The other sites in blue are proposed neighborhood mixed use to allow 30 dwelling units per acre. 1949 Grant Road proposes a medium-high density residential land use designation, which allows 35 dwelling units per acre, which is slightly greater than the 30 dwelling units per acre required by the housing element. And lastly, the Mountain View Transit Center proposes text amendments to allow residential at 75 dwelling units per acre. And staff has made several zoning and precise plan updates to implement the general plan mixed-use village center land use. The Evandale Precise Plan has been modified to allow this land use in Area A of the Precise Plan, and the zoning ordinance has been modified to allow this land use in the commercial office district, which would allow them for the Miramonte and Cuesta sites. Additional changes to the development standards are proposed to allow existing office businesses to return to the sites if redeveloped, and reduction in street lot width requirements to allow commercial to be retained in the Calderon and Evandale Precise Plan sites. Additionally, updates to the Grant Martin's Precise Plan to create a new Area C and add new uses and development standards have been incorporated. The Evelyn Avenue Corridor Precise Plan modifies the transit services sub-area to allow residential and to also add a height provision. Other minor code updates have been made to update outdated code references in the Precise Plan and to amend the Evelyn Avenue Corridor Precise Plan to remove minimum parking consistent with city code and state law. And lastly, to clarify when navigation easements are required citywide. As directed by council, staff reviewed existing resources to help small businesses return to redeveloped sites. Existing programs to assist small businesses include site selection to provide hands-on support to businesses to evaluate relocation or expansion opportunities, business development to connect small businesses with tools for technical assistance, to help with everyday operations and financial resources. And lastly, small business loan program is under development and intended to provide capital for small businesses for things such as new equipment, tenant improvements, and other operating expenses. Additionally, the economic vitality strategy outlines tools such as rent caps and commercial rent subsidies to help bridge market gaps. This can serve as a support mechanism to allow businesses to return to new developments. However, further work is needed to identify a stable funding source to ensure success of this program. And as directed by council, staff also studied several zoning options to retain small businesses. There are limited land use and zoning tools, as restrictions on residential development conflicts with the housing element goals to create more housing opportunities, or may be difficult to implement under state law. One zoning alternative approach may help preserve several small businesses in the Evandale Precise Plan. This alternative would continue to prohibit residential development on 3 parcels shown in the hashed lines. This alternative would meet the housing element program, as these excluded sites are not in the site inventory, and the program itself does not prescribe the entire Area A to be rezoned. A drawback to this option is it reduces potential housing capacity in Area A, and as such, staff does not recommend this alternative and recommends rezoning the entirety of Area A to maximize housing opportunity. Additionally, small business displacement is a citywide issue and not limited to this area alone. Therefore, other options should be considered outside of the implementation of this housing element program to look at this issue more broadly. As for next steps, following a recommendation from EPC at this public hearing, the proposed amendments would be reviewed at City Council on December 16, where a final decision will be made. And staff reviewed the amendments to understand if there were new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of the impacts, and found that the project was analyzed as part of the citywide Housing Element Update Program, EIR, which was adopted in 2023. Therefore, no additional environmental documentation is needed under CEQA. And staff did receive 12 written public comments prior to this meeting. One comment disagreed with the proposed approach for the Evandale Precise Plan. One supported the amendments, and several voiced concerns related to the amendments at 1702 Miramonte. As such, staff does recommend, EPC recommend the general plan, precise plan, and zoning amendments. Thank you for your time, and this concludes staff presentation. We're available to answer any additional questions. Thank you.
Man, I'm having a rough day today. I'm so sorry. So now, should we move on to public comment and then do questions? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Bear with me, folks. Okay. All right, so let's move on to public comment. If anyone in attendance would like to provide comments on this item, please fill out a yellow speaker card and provide it to the APC clerk. If anyone on Zoom would like to provide a comment on this item, please check the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. APC clerk.
We have one member online and several speakers in person. Which would you like first?
How many speakers in person do we have? Because that take the time allowed, right?
6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yeah. And if there's no specific order, can we do Zoom first and then in person?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Or sorry, we have 2 on Zoom now.
Cool.
Okay. First speaker will be Bruce England. Bruce, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Thank you. Hello, everybody again. Bruce England, Wisman Station Drive, speaking for myself this time. I just wanted to let everyone know that where I live is in the Wisman Station area, and this was zoned light industrial for a very long time. And then in the late 1990s, it was changed to enable a precise plan for our area and also to put in HOA development with townhomes and single family homes and so on. I've lived here since 1997. And I really enjoy this neighborhood. One of the things that we were told at the time was that we wouldn't be able to have the services that we really wanted until the population went up. We needed more development, more housing here, so more people lived here so we could get the services. So we do have a shopping center at Wisman and Middlefield, but even better from my perspective is Pyramid Park, which is a jewel park, a new park that exists in Mountain View. And the city would not have installed it, I'm pretty sure, unless there was a need from residents who lived here. So we've created a new neighborhood, relatively new neighborhood, by changing the zoning and recognizing that we needed this kind of a neighborhood on this side of Mountain View. I wanted to say that because people who are concerned about change in their part of Mountain View might consider that their part of Mountain View might actually be improved as a result of the changes. Thanks.
Next, we have Zoe Martin. Zoe, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Hi, my name is Zoe Martin, and I'm a resident of the Varsity Park, Blossom Valley neighborhood. I wanted to express my support for the changes of the housing element program, specifically for the neighborhood mixed-use rezoning proposed for 1702 and 1704 Miramonte Avenue. I've lived in this neighborhood pretty much my entire life, and I know what a great place it is to live. We have great schools, parks, streets, and other resources such as gas stations, grocery stores, churches, and much more nearby. I know that some of my neighbors have expressed concerns about the rezoning. While I can sympathize with their concerns, in my opinion and experience, and without details of an actual proposed development, I see this change as an extension of, rather than disruption to, the existing neighborhood. And I'm excited to see a positive change in our city's development happen in a place I know well and love. In the face of the Bay Area housing crisis, and especially considering affordable housing, I am happy to see Mountain View taking action and incorporating more mixed-use zoning into our city. If we want things to change, we have to be willing to see and experience change. I also appreciate efforts to retain local businesses in their existing spaces with the mixed-use zoning. Thank you for your time.
In-person speakers. First will be Louis Lin.
Good evening, Honorable Council. Thank you for sending me the notice about my neighborhood. I just had a quick comment about Leong. I drive there all the time, and it's on a blind curve, so please make the developers know that probably someone is going to get T-boned if there's more density there. Right now, it's just a bunch of duplexes. I actually don't know what's being built there, but I'm pretty much fine with it. Also, I wanted to ask, how can Easy Street get rezoned? Because it's ripe for rezoning. You know, the recent property sales were quite disappointing. All those duplexes were old back in the day, and they're not getting any younger. So all the lots are pretty much between 7,000 and 8,000 square feet. They only have 1,800 square foot duplexes on them. I don't know how it'd work out, but I'd be interested. I'm thinking, like, I was wondering why no one's been talking about this, but I'm assuming the reason why is because there's single family homes on the other side of my fence, and the single family people, even though these are like homes that were probably worth like $80,000 not that long ago, are probably have a pretty big influence. But I think there's plenty of spots to at least build fourplexes or whatnot. But I guess I could say it's not easy living on Easy Street, unfortunately. So that's pretty much all I have to say. If there's anyone who wants to reach out, or at least who could I reach out to ask if how this process could get started, it was kind of went off in my mind when Leong showed up on the public notice. So, but you know, this neighborhood is like the northern crossroads of the Bay Area. I mean, Middlefield, 101, Central, El Camino, 85, they all come through this neighborhood. So it's definitely underutilized. Thank you.
The next speaker is Perrine Dillon.
Hi, I'm Prerna Dillon, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of giving me a chance to speak here today. I'm from the Varsity Park neighborhood, and I'm here to express concerns on the rezoning for 1702 and 1704 and 777 Cuesta. While I am also pro-housing, and I understand that we are in a crisis where we need more housing, my concerns are around whether sufficient studies have been performed on, say, the impact to the traffic the parking, neighborhood, schools, parks, how would we really absorb this high-density housing? I just haven't seen that kind of analysis done in whatever information was shared with us today. And that is my plea, that if we are rezoning, are we taking into consideration the impact to the quality of life for existing neighbors and the existing neighborhood, where we all bought our homes because there are quiet streets where our kids can ride their bikes to school. There were accidents on Grant on kids biking to school, and this is something that really concerns me, that if we increase the density, how are we maintaining the safety of our existing neighborhood? That's all. Thank you.
Next is Kristen L.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I can't see you with my glasses on, but I'm going to read this. So I'm particularly concerned about the zoning proposal for 777 Cuesta. This is a building that's literally 10 feet from my house. We would lose privacy. Part of the zoning is for a potential high rise, and we would lose privacy, everyone in that strip along our entire backyard, if we had a high rise residences be able to look over the backyards. The high rise would eliminate all light into our house. Imagine the house that you live in and a tall building 10 feet from your house going up. There's one room in our house that gets direct sun, and that would be eliminated. A multi-residential property creates additional density, which is a major safety issue. Cars we currently are having an issue with the traffic at this intersection where it's Miramonte, Sladkey, and Tulane. The cars create U-turns mid-street, especially because we have the two-lane Sladkey intersection. My daughter experiences a lack of safety daily with her biking, and more traffic would create major safety hazards. There's currently no street parking near our house. When we come home after 3 p.m., we have to park 2 or 3 blocks away, and then we go move our car at night. We experience excessive noise. People who are the employees of the current building, they park between 7 and 8 a.m. and blare their music until they go to work at 8 a.m. And during their breaks, they turn on the music in their car and are blaring their music during their breaks. People are parking illegally. Every single day, you'll see people parking on the red curbs. They sometimes cross into our driveway and make it hard to get in. And they're covering public fire hydrants. This is a major concern. We understand that housing is an issue, but this solution isn't an appropriate one for this street. And one more thing.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
But just so you know, we read your emails that came in, so I know you had something in as well, along with other folks here. But if you'd like to continue with sending us additional comments, by all means, feel free to reach us through email.
Okay. I just want to say the more people are also upset about this, and the information was relatively hidden in the postcard and communications.
Thank you. EPC clerk.
Next up is Anna Duran.
Hello, this is Anna. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I'm a resident of the Tulane Drive, and I have strong opposition towards the 1702 Miramonte, 1704, 777 Cuesta Drive. We are a community of families who invested in this neighborhood, in a stable neighborhood, quiet, where all of our kids, 2, 3, 4 years old, they run around, they are so happy playing with their friends and going with bikes. So adding more residences and more cluster and just creates unsafety for our neighborhood and for our kids. There are schools surrounding that neighborhood and all the kids back to school. So just imagine having hundreds of more cars doing illegal things on the street. It's already a problem right now, so adding more residences creates it a bigger problem. We believe that this is an arbitrary spot zoning is actually in direct conflict with the general plan of protecting and maintaining the character and the quality of single-family neighborhoods. This is a neighborhood where it's single-family mainly, so adding those high-rises there is in direct contrast to that. Then we just don't think that there has been enough analysis on what's it going to do to the traffic. What about the safety? I'm hearing a lot of commercial, but what about the safety and all of our residents that have paid millions of dollars for every single house of that? Then this proposal is also based on an assumption. It's like near major transit stops, but the BTA is not a major transit stop, so we don't believe that this is factually correct, that this is next to a place where there's a lot of like public transportation. There's just the BTA. We also believe that there are other areas that could be analyzed, El Camino, San Antonio Road, Moffett, all of those have already high-rise buildings, so it's more consistent with that rather than our neighborhood. And just if you...
Thank you very much. Appreciate your concern.
If you all have family and kids,
EPC
if
clerk,
you can think about
who's
it
our
from
next
this
guest
angle.
speaker, please?
Next is Pradeep Bardia and followed by Tejas Mistry.
Hi, good evening. I will try to be quick. I'm opposing 1702, 1704. My house is directly in front of that. When I moved into the neighborhood 14 years back, there were 2 medical dental offices. Now there are 10 of them. On top of that, I've never had the problem of parking on the street. You guys, I don't know if the team has analyzed the transportation. We've complained over years and years of complaints. But either my options are, should I convert my house into a rezoned public mixed-use land or what? Because I can't stay there. There's no way I can stay there. If you guys are directly, putting an apartment complex right in, blocking everything that I have invested in that property, it's all gone. So my concerns are basically, how do you address the parking situation? It's never been resolved. And on top of that, would I be allowed to rezone my house? Because there's no point in staying there. I can't be sitting and staying in front of an apartment complex. Is that possibility? Or what are the options I have? Because I don't think I can live there with the decisions that you guys are making. So I'm not sure if all of you know the property, but solely oppose 1702, 1704 Miramonte. I've been living with it for 10 years, from 2 medical offices to 10 medical offices, and now mixed use. You're forcing me out of the community. Thank you.
And lastly, Tejas Mistry.
Hi, good evening, Commission. Speaking on behalf of 55 Fairchild Drive, which is in Evandale, Precise Plan Area A. I spoke at the last meeting where we discussed the rezoning, and I raised the same concern again, that with this mixed-use village, we will have 1.35 FAR for residential, but the neighborhood commercial zoning will still limit my property as well as everyone else's to 0.35 FAR, which basically will essentially discourage any sort of commercial redevelopment in that area. I just want you all to be aware that the hotels that are in Evandale Precise Plan Area A generate about $500,000 of transit tax for the city every year. And as soon as we all redevelop as housing, all that money goes away. So I would really strongly suggest you talk to the planning department about rezoning the commercial side as well, because honestly, Mountain View does not need to lose $500,000 of transit tax. 2 other points to mention. As it is with 1.35 FAR and 43 dwelling units per acre, I do have a concern about what the height restriction would be for us, considering that Moffett Field is across the street. Will we be able to actually achieve 43 dwelling units? So that's something that I would like to follow up with the planning department. And the third thing is our part of the Precise Plan essentially intentionally does not have a sound wall on 101 because we're the commercial part of Highway 101. Right after my property, there's a 12-foot tall sound barrier. If eventually all of our properties turn into multifamily residential, how do we petition Caltrans to change that to a sound wall? because there's no way we'll be able to meet the decibel rating that the city is going to oblige us to if we're having residential there. Thank you.
There are no other speakers.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who stopped by to give us your perspectives and viewpoints. Please know that when we limit the time, it's because we have a lengthy meeting, and we need to respect that just so that everyone has a fair amount of time to be able to speak on the issue. That way we don't treat anyone more, we don't give anyone more time than others, and everyone's treated equally. We will move on to the segment of the EPC deliberation and take into two parts. The first part will include a commissioner recusal and will focus on discussion about general plan amendments at 1702, 1704 Miramonte Avenue and 777 Cuesta Drive, and zoning amendments affecting commercial districts and general plan mixed-use village center developments. We must also consider the Leon-Avondale area and 677, 699 Calderon Avenue in our deliberation regarding the general plan mixed-use village center development standards and the zoning ordinance amendments. Afterwards, the second part will be the commissioner's recusal, where we will discuss the remaining amendments, including the general plan amendments and precise plan amendments regarding the transit center, the Leon-Avondale area, the Grant Road site, and the Calderon Avenue site, and the zoning amendment regarding navigation easements. That will also be the appropriate time to discuss the Leon-Avondale area, small business alternative, and the staff report. I will now ask the commissioner with conflict of interest to make their recusal statement.
No sense in being formal about it. Mr. Chair, I unfortunately need to recuse myself from the discussions pertaining to the Cuesta and Miramonte properties because of the proximity of my primary residence.
Thank you, sir. Great. Let's discuss deliberations regarding general plan amendments at 1702, 1704 Miramonte Avenue and 777 Cuesta Drive, and zoning amendments affecting commercial districts and general plan mixed-use village center developments, including development standards for general plan mixed-use village center developments at Avondale Precise Plan and 677, 699 Calderon Avenue. Do I have any speakers? Vice Chair Nunez?
Just point of, I guess, clarification on the process. Are we moving straight to deliberation, questions? And can you just, I appreciate the script reading. I just want to make sure if more plain kind of stated what's the scope of this round.
I think we'll do it the way we always, the majority of the times that we proceed with these issues, we go with questions first, and then we'll have deliberations. I probably misspoke and said deliberations first in conversation, so I appreciate you bringing that up. So let's start with questions. Do any commissioners have any questions? And having said that, Commissioner Cranston, do you have a question?
I have questions.
You have a question? Okay, great.
Questions.
Sounds good. Go ahead, Vice Chair Nunez.
Okay. So then, therefore, the next question, again, around just clarification of process, which are we exclusively making our final or like round of deliberate? Are we going to ask questions, deliberate, and then vote on exclusively these properties and then the rest? Or are we, how are we doing that? Just one more time.
You know, that's a great point of clarification. That was my understanding, but if Deanna or Eric have a different interpretation, I'm sure they'll let us know right now. Or Chris?
Yes, we would encourage you to make your recommendation on these items, specifically the Chapter 36 commercial zones, the Chapter 36 general plan mixed-use development standards, and the general plan amendments at Miramonte and Cuesta. Now, if there's conversation about the Avondale area or the Calderon area after the recusal item is over, then we will ask the commissioner to leave again, and you can reopen that item if you feel like you need to.
Okay, cool, thank you. Then in that case, unless there's more questions on process, I can go ahead and ask questions on subject matter. So I have a quick question just to kind of make sure I'm clarifying my understanding on this. This is us as the city seeking to, formally finalize the commitments made as part of the housing element that was certified by the state as of last year for the latest cycle. And so just really, I guess, like either as simply or broadly as possible, if that's okay, to staff, what elements are like at all within the discretion of any discussion today for the commission?
Good evening, Honorable Chair and Commissioners. Christian Murdoch, Community Development Director. I think it's important to keep in mind that this subject matter was discussed in extensive detail back in January by the EPC and City Council in February, at which time the City Council provided direction on the approaches to take relative to the general plan amendments and zoning amendments. And so I feel as though the task has been given to the commission, and really the role tonight is to explore what's been prepared by staff and to ensure that it accomplishes that City Council direction. I think more broadly, there is some discretion related to the small business zoning alternative, and the question posed by staff, where staff recommends rezoning the entire Evandale precise plan area, as noted in the staff report, or the alternative that the commission could consider in favor of small business preservation to scale back and exclude 3 parcels from that rezoning. I think it's really on that question of the small business retention in the Evandale precise plan area where most of the discretion remains at this point.
So then for the remaining parcels, properties, tracts, plots, et cetera, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm mistaken in this, it sounds like the commission cannot reject, delay, reduce, or substitute any committed sites or densities as part of the connection to the certified housing element. Is that an accurate statement?
Well, I think it's important to note that the commission's making a recommendation to the City Council, but I would encourage you to make a recommendation that respects the housing element and the City Council's prior direction on this subject matter. And so that would be to continue with these sites and to effectuate the changes as staff has prepared in the materials for the meeting.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah. So I guess technically we can't recommend anything that would, or we ought not to. Okay. And then another question: when it comes to the SB 79 component, was there? It's new. It's fresh. I'm just wondering of what is expected or just broadly known about SB 79 at this stage and point in time. Does that obviate anything, or is that going above and beyond what we're like looking at in terms of densities within the scope of what we put forward in our housing element, or is it too early to tell yet what the comparison would look like between what we committed and what SB 79 now calls for?
Sure. So I think it's first important to note that SB 79 takes effect July 1st, 2026, and so it's not in place now, and it wouldn't resolve any obligations the city has broadly in the housing element. Also, I don't know that any of the areas specifically are within the SB 79 area other than the transit center site, and so we may need to take a closer look at that, when we do our work related to SB 79, but it's not of immediate import for the question tonight for the commission because the law is not in effect yet.
Sounds good. And the last question from my end. In these public notices that go out, to what extent, I know that, there's limitations and pragmatism that has to be kind of, if not actual requirements technically in terms of how these get put forward, but is staff, or does staff have a sense that they can share in terms of what kind of contextualization gets communicated as part of these notices in terms of, how we communicate that, right? I mean, because if this is something that is a continuation of, right, the housing element, which itself is a very complicated beast, right? And I'm sure we all don't want to relive that trauma, but to what extent are we kind of contextualizing that when we're communicating with residents?
Yeah, I'll provide a general response first and then allow Planning Manager Anderson to elaborate on the considerations that may have gone into this particular notice. So it's certainly a balancing act. You know, there's limited space to communicate this information. It's important to do so in a way that's legally adequate and accurate as to parcels being acted upon for zoning, for example, but not to get so technical and specific and extensive that the message is lost and that an ordinary person would not be able to digest and understand the subject matter. And so there is some judgment that goes in to crafting those public notices. And maybe Mr. Anderson can speak a little more about the noticing for this item.
Yeah, for this item, we focused on implementing the housing element, allowing multifamily development, and of course, as the director said, our statutory noticing requirements, which include identifying all of the properties as clearly as we can. So that we also provide our contact information for anybody that wants to reach out and better understand the content of what's being discussed.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cranston.
Yeah, a few questions. Can you remind me what some of the height restrictions and so forth are for the neighborhood mixed use? I don't have all the zoning.
Yeah, so the maximum height for the Miramonte and Cuesta sites is 45 feet.
So a townhome would fit within that?
Yeah, and currently the existing zoning is about 35 feet, so a mixed use would be 45, so an additional 10 above existing.
By changing the designations, it doesn't prevent or require or relieve the obligation of any applicant from going through the normal business process in the future. They would have to submit plans, they'd have to submit what they plan to do, how it would fit into the area, meet the city's codes and so forth. So there's nothing in this that says that they can do away with anything that's part of the normal process. It's simply saying this land use is permitted, but you still have to go through the normal process, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then I didn't think this was anywhere close to the SB 79 area. I don't actually believe this area falls in something that would have anything would reduce the requirement for parking so any project submitted would have to go through the normal existing already established parking regulations for a property of this type on the number of spaces. Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's correct. These sites aren't impacted by, it's not near a major transit stop, so minimum parking regulations still apply.
Okay, so all the normal.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Those were my main two questions. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Yin.
Sorry. Actually, Commissioner Cranston asked my question, so I forgot to withdraw.
No problem. Commissioner Donahue.
One thing I noticed actually just around dinner time was that we're talking about 1702 and 1704 Miramonte, but the housing element only talks about 1702 Miramonte. So is this an expansion of the additional property or
No,
something?
it's just an additional address, so it's on the same parcel, but the two buildings have different addressing.
Oh.
So the intent was for that one parcel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, another question that I sent to staff. In Exhibit 1, some of the parcel numbers, I don't think it was for this one, but for some of the parcel numbers expressed didn't follow the 3-digit, 2-digit, 3-digit format, and I wasn't sure if they were correct parcel numbers or what.
Yes, I think we accidentally omitted a 0 in front of the third digit, so we will update that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that there's no...
It's 323, you're correct.
Yeah, but yes. I just want to make sure that there's no, that something would go wrong or not be legally binding or something if this mistake was found later.
Yeah, so I think we can update those.
Okay, great. there's an amendment to, I'm not sure whether to ask this now or later. This whole kind of splitting it up is a little confusing. But in the amendment to 363115, it changes the width from 70 feet to 60 feet for the storefront, where you can have a storefront. And it says that the purpose was to capture certain parcels, but not capture certain streets or parcels, I guess, but not to capture some others like Plaza Court and Dalma on the kind of the backside of that property. Does it affect any other, like, is that a full list of the streets that would be affected in the staff report, where it lists which ones you intend to enable the storefronts and not to enable the other storefronts?
Yes, that's the intent, was to allow the storefronts on those streets that we listed in the staff report. I think it was Evandale, Leong, and Calderon,
yeah.
and Church.
And Church, right. But I just want to make sure there weren't any additional things that weren't listed there that would also have been affected, or that there's not any unintended consequences to that. So I think it sounds like the answer is no. Okay. And I think other people actually already asked my questions, so thanks.
Commissioner Pham?
Let me know if this is not the right time to ask the question, if I should wait after the recusal. But I had a more general question about how the opportunity sites were identified for Housing Element Program 1.1G. I know that this item had come up in January and February, but that was before I joined EPC. So I just wanted some context.
Sure. Early in the housing element process, we had determined, or we had projected that we had enough sites in order to accommodate our regional housing needs allocation already zoned, because we had recently done big rezonings in East Wisman and North Bayshore and other areas. However, later in the housing, earlier in the housing element process, we also identified some what we called back pocket sites that we would continue to study as potentially including in the sites inventory or rezoning in case something came up in the housing element process. It was a very uncertain housing element process. We didn't know how the state was going to respond to our drafts. And of course, later on in the process, we did get some resistance from the state on some of our drafts and some of our proposed opportunity sites. And so we went back to those back pocket sites that we had identified earlier on, and especially focused on the ones that are in higher opportunity neighborhoods south of El Camino and around downtown. So that's why we included commercial sites, specifically south of El Camino and around downtown. And then as well, the Evandale area is a commercial area that has several underutilized sites. So that was another opportunity through the housing element to identify areas where housing development is likely feasible. And then we were also aware that Caltrain was interested in potentially developing the transit center. So that's why these sites, we've got several commercial sites south of El Camino, we've got, and around downtown on the Calderon site, and then Evandale and the transit center.
All right. Perhaps I'll ask my Caltrain related question later, since it's not pertaining to the item right in front of us. I did have a question related to the staff report mentioning outreach, and I know Vice Chair Nunes asked a question related to notices, which was a great question, and so I appreciate he asked that question. I had a follow-up question about outreach related to the landlords, and the staff report mentioned a lot of the outreach happened during the housing element timeframe. So it's been some time. Do we know if additional outreach has happened, or if my concern is has there been any turnover for the landlords for these particular parcels? may have been missed in terms of outreach?
Well, I'm not aware of any turnover. It's not something that we track directly, but we do send notices, and I believe we also sent formal letters during this process. So we sent formal letters during the housing element process, during this process, as well as notices for these meetings. Some property owners responded, some didn't, and to the extent that it's possible for us to kind of find contact information for property owners, which is very difficult, that's our best way to get a hold of people.
And I'll just add the extra effort as well by staff to hand deliver notices to business tenants within the affected commercial areas as well, which is beyond the legal requirements for this process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pham. Commissioner Donahue.
Okay, sorry, I have another question. The one of the things in one of the emails that we got around the Miramonte site was studying cumulative impacts of having multiple developments, like on the property on Cuesta Drive and the Miramonte ones, or one that has two addresses, I guess. I know that as Commissioner Cranston asked, that there would be studies done, I guess, when an actual development proposal is done. But as far as the EIR goes, do you have any comments about the study of cumulative impacts and?
Sure. I will say that at the program EIR level, the analysis of cumulative impacts is necessarily less precise than it would be at a project CEQA level. So there are a lot of unknowns because we don't know exactly what projects are going to look like. We don't know everything there is to know about these properties, like what's in the soil or anything like that, right? Like we can't know that until a development actually comes through. So looking at cumulative impacts from a housing element level, yeah, we looked at utility impacts and population impacts and all the other required impacts that we need to study for a CEQA document at the scale of citywide growth for the 11,000 plus additional units that we need to across the city. And this project is consistent with that analysis. The next level of analysis would happen either at the project level, if they are required to go through CEQA at the project level, and through the development review process.
Okay, thanks.
Great, and I have a simple question in terms of parking. How was that process addressed? Because I know we had talked about it before. I mean, we had talked about all these plans back in 2023, touched on them in 2022, took them on in 2024, and then now, earlier in the year, we also talked about it in January, and we had brought up that issue. Could you please remind, for the folks who are viewing or who are here now, what that looked like?
Discussion of parking.
And regulations in terms of construction growth, and there not being any specific minimum one-to-one requirements, but rather minimum standards, which means you can afford to build and not have enough parking spaces. That was my understanding, right?
There are minimum parking standards that would apply to developments at Miramonte Avenue and Cuesta Drive. Now, I will say that there are processes in state law for developers to request adjustments to those standards. But we do have those standards, and we will enforce them to the extent that we can under state law. And so this is not, we are doing the extent of parking enforcement that we can under state law with these development standards.
Okay, so you did factor them in, and they are what they are, basically is what I'm hearing. And there's a process involved so that once a developer comes in and says, I'm interested in doing X, Y, Z, that will also then be talked about at that time. And
right.
Exactly. Okay.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you. Do any other commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Yen.
Yeah, quick question. What is the current parking standard for the office
Office is typically required to provide one space for every 300 square feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Actually, medical's a little higher. So if it's majority medical, I think it's one space per 150 square feet.
I asked because a lot of the public members said that the current parking situation is already a little bit challenged given the standards we're at today.
And it may be a case where the existing building is not built to current parking standards as they're required today. And so that could be an issue that could be helped by future development because it could be built to current parking standards in the future.
Thanks.
Do you have any other questions, Commissioner Yan?
That was it. Thank you.
Great. Okay, who would like to start with deliberations? Vice Chair Nunez.
I'm gonna support this as is, and the reason why is because this is part of our housing element process, no longer. I mean, it's part of fulfilling our obligations to the housing element that, you know, as a city, we undertook through a years-long process that most of us were a part of in some shape or form. It's, as I understand that from a noticing perspective, there's only so much from a contextualization side and, you know, kind of like amount of kind of like the percentage of people that get these notices, that read these notices along the way of any process, not just like this one involved, but even the housing element, for example. And so, and the housing element obviously being one of the most noticed processes that the city runs. And so it's just unfortunate. But I mean, this is where we're at with this. From a consistency perspective, as much as I would like to also save some of those small businesses in the kind of discretionary part of this, I believe around the Evandale kind of situation. Mexican restaurant, I think, as much as I would love to do that, I also agree that from a policy perspective, that's better addressed through a dedicated policy program for that. And then in addition to that, you know, again, we have to, you know, I was a part of the housing element process, and if, you know, I started trying to chip away at that now, then I would be not consistent with that. So that's where I'm at. I will be supporting the recommendations.
Thank you, Vice Chair Nunez. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Yin.
I have always been a proponent of, you know, transitioning to existing. And that's usually when we have a project before us that's more defined, and that is the hope. Because of where we are and why we're doing this, it has been a very long process. I sympathize with those that have taken the time and effort to come speak. So much has already gone into it, and so much research and analysis, and a lot of these are state mandated. We are required to follow through, and unfortunately, we are where we are. And at this meeting, we're really just trying to implement what we've promised we would do, in a sense. So there are opportunities to take your voice and share them further when a project does arise. But at this point for this meeting, we're looking at a larger sort of goal, which is to just rezone according to the housing element that has already been passed and approved. So from my perspective, given that this is what I am going to say is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to be in favor of the change to the ordinance and the zoning to accommodate residential on the site as well as what's already there, bringing it to mixed use.
Thank you. Commissioner Donahue?
I have similar thoughts. I appreciate you guys are showing up at the meetings, and that's, I think, absolutely the right thing to do. And show, this will go to the city council. You should go to that meeting. If there's any development, like concrete development proposals, you know, there will be a whole process for that. Absolutely, I think you should be involved. I mean, it's important. We got to this point. There's a housing element that we have an agreement with the state, and it took a long time to get there. And I think that it's that we need to fulfill our obligations under that agreement. And yeah, so I guess I don't, you know, if this were from fresh looking at it, I don't know how I would come out, but I think I'm going to have to support fulfilling our obligations. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Donahue. Commissioner Cranston.
So a key part of the housing element was making sure that when we created these opportunity sites, that it presented an opportunity in all areas of the city. We don't want a process that says, okay, well, these people can only live in this area, these people in that area. And when this was challenged during the housing element process, these areas were identified specifically because they're high opportunity areas. That if someone's we're gonna build some housing, they're areas that there's good schools, there's shopping nearby. It's a nice neighborhood, and that was an important factor in our original evaluation of these sites, was to make sure that whatever we did met those needs. The fact that, again, this is not a specific project. It's not that was the reason I asked that question, because I just wanted to be sure we weren't doing anything that was going to remove that, and it's not an area where the ability to waive parking standards is in place. The state is required in areas like downtown. So I think this is what I had expected when we looked at this. It's not a huge change in the set, and it's important to recognize, and I do it myself. It's like you look at something and say, well, it's a single-story building today, but that's not how it's zoned today. Okay, it's zoned bigger. So we're not comparing to what's there. We're comparing to what's permitted today, and we're doing something that allows housing in a space that's actually permitted for larger than what's in either location. So I'm comfortable with proceeding on this. It still meets those things that when we originally talked about it as to why we would include it, and none of those have changed in my mind as to the reasoning behind it at that time. So I think we should proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner Cranston. Commissioner Yen?
Oh, no, I had already gone. That was left of her.
Commissioner Pham?
I'm going to be supporting this. I want to thank staff for giving some of the context. A lot of this work and a lot of the work of the fellow commissioners here happened a long time before I joined DPC, but even so, I can see that a lot of work and analysis had happened, over many years. So I'll say that. I also appreciate, the look at small businesses and, having commercial being able to remain there as well as housing. And also staff being very careful about not creating non-conformance issues. I also want to encourage staff to think about what additional outreach could happen between now and the council meeting on planned December 16th. I know that all the notices that are legally required have gone out, which is great. But just to go over and beyond, something that staff could consider.
Anyone else? No? Okay, I'll go ahead and chime in. I think when we have folks like we do now here present and they're becoming involved with how this process works, there's a sudden realization that, holy cow, this was in the works for a long time. And now we're finding out, now we're participating, and now we're speaking out, we are concerned. And change like that is always hard when it affects you personally. When you're up here on the dais, and if you're not in that particular area or neighborhood, you know, one of the things that's asked of us, which I think is good, is to go visit those sites. Try and imagine yourself as if you were in the neighborhood, as if you lived there, and try to envision what this may or may not look like. So I just have to stress to everyone that, like it's been said before, we're just changing the zoning category right now. That gives then the property owners the ability to have the option to then do something else in compliance to the norms that we have established today, and then that council will ratify later on according to what we submitted to the state. And if and when something's then submitted for a proposal, like Commissioner Cranston and Yen have mentioned, that's the time when you would then go into these particulars about how will this look like, how will this impact my view, my sunlight, parking spaces. One key point that I'd like to stress again is what Eric had mentioned earlier, which is it could be that at the sites by Miramonte at that time, the standards weren't meant for parking, which would possibly, and I'm saying this is the reason why it is the way it is, but it could possibly explain why there's some issues there. So having heard that there's still concerns about parking spaces there, people parked in red spots or by fire hydrants, that there's an issue there for allocation of spots of vehicles for the property owners that live there, because people come in and work there and then they take over some of those spots. I think that's also something where the team here, including the city attorney's team and Eric and everyone here have listened to that. So possibly if there's a way to let the chief know about the concerns that were brought up to us about those issues, I think that would be greatly appreciated up to a point. I can send an email to him as well, or whatever process you think is fine to inform them of these concerns. That would be appreciated. And I'm just leaving that there for follow-up, and I welcome your input on that front. But I'll be supporting this as well because it's been in the works for a while. And what I want to also stress is our ability to also try and have the businesses stay and be part of the community still, right? Because we don't know what the future holds. And that's the scary part, because you don't know. And when you don't know, your imagination can run amok. But at least there's a possibility there that we will have not just business, but business and housing, if it even comes to that. Because it could be that nothing happens. And that's something else that we have to think about, because that could then affect our plans of how we look at the overall goals of what we wanted to do with the housing element plan. Okay, thank you. All right, so at this point in time, I think we're moving on to point 2, which is where we'll discuss the remaining amendments, including the general plan amendments and precise plan amendments regarding the transit center.
Excuse me, yes. Chair. You may want to have a motion then for the recommendation.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let's go ahead and do that, which would be point number 1. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Truth be told, I got hit right before I came here from behind. I got bumped over on the way to the meeting, so that's why I'm a little out of it right now, right? So anyways, having said that, let's move on with a possible motion for point 1. And then would you like me to read that right now?
Can you? Yeah, can you bring up the
sure.
recommendation? So this is a slightly adjusted recommendation that removes the unrelated properties from the general plan action, and then there'll be another more text for the zoning action. So if you can read from the screen, I don't know if it's possible to bring it up.
Sure. So first I'll announce to the UPC clerk and to the team that a motion has been made by Vice Chair Nunez and seconded by Commissioner Cranston.
Should I read that just as is? Exactly as is?
Yeah, do they need to read the title text for the text for the motion?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I make a motion that the Environmental Planning Commission, 1, recommend the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View adopting a general plan amendment to update the land use and design element and modify the general plan land use map to change the land use designation for the following properties to implement housing element program 1.1G. 2, 1702, and 1704 Miramonte Avenue and 777 Cuesta Drive from office to neighborhood mixed use, as recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission on January 24th, 2023. The City Council certified the 2023 to 2031 Housing Element Update Environmental Impact Report adopted by Resolution 18755 pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 15168, 15162, and 15163. None of the circumstances necessitating further CEQA review are present. Exhibit 1 to the EPC staff report.
Page 2, right? You're not done.
And that the Environmental Planning Commission to recommend the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Mountain View amending Chapter 36 zoning of the City Code to implement Subtask G of Housing Element Program 1.1, including updates to Article 5 commercial zones to allow general plan mixed-use village center land uses in the CO commercial offices zoning district, and to make other clarifying conforming changes such as modifying and reorganizing standards in Division 23, general plan mixed-use village center developments of Article 9, standards for specific land uses to be consistent with the CO zoning district and Avondale Precise Plan. Exhibit 2 to the EPC staff report.
Okay, great. Let's vote.
The motion passes with 6 yeas and 1 recused.
Great, thank you, sir. Thank you, commissioners. Okay, now let's move on to point 2. After the commissioner's recusal, we will discuss the remaining amendments, including the general plan amendments and precise plan amendments regarding the transit center, the Leon-Avondale area, the Grant Road site, and the Calderon Avenue site, and the zoning amendment regarding navigation easements. That will be the appropriate time to discuss then the Leon-Avondale area small business alternative and the staff report. I will now ask the commissioner with conflict of interest to make, well, no, let's forget that. Commissioner Dempsey, you're back. Thank you for being part of the team again. And who would like to ask questions first? Because we'll do, again, questions and then deliberation. Commissioner Cranston?
I guess I had maybe I misunderstood in the staff report. Krishna said that the areas were hashed were not part of the original scope of what was an opportunity area, or they are? I got the impression that if we remove those, then we were actually taking something off of the site inventory. Is that? But she made it sound like it wasn't there at all originally. Did I misunderstand?
So the site inventory in the housing element does not include the 3 sites that were hatched on the map that she showed. The language in the housing element for program 1.1G does include sites that are not in the site inventory. So for example, 777 Cuesta is not in the site inventory, 1949 Grant Road not in the site inventory. So it's a belt and suspenders approach to rezoning that we are rezoning for more opportunity than even the sites that were deemed underutilized in the site inventory. So in this portion of the Avondale Precise Plan, a number of those sites are in the site inventory. I don't recall exactly which ones, but probably at least 3 or 4 of them are in the site's inventory, but several of them are not.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Cranston. Commissioner Yen?
Could you go into a little bit more detail about the avigation requirements, just to understand it better?
Sure. So the comprehensive land use plan for Moffett Field does have a whole section about avigation easements. Avigation easements are typically a kind of a property owner notice that there will be planes flying overhead, generating noise, and potentially other disruptions. They also can occasionally have the benefit if, like, let's say you have a tall building that needs to, under federal law, have like special lighting, it can also provide whoever owns the easement, in this case it would be Moffett Field, they would have the right to maintain that lighting or require that that lighting be maintained. That can also be part of an avigation easement. Now, these sites aren't going to be built tall enough to require any of that. We've gone through the ALUC process, and they're not going to be going through the maximum height, going above the maximum heights where any of those mitigations are going to be necessary. So in general, for these cases, avigation easements are the former case that I was talking about, when a property owner is essentially being notified that there are sources of noise or other quality of life impacts from the airport. Because of that, our determination during the comprehensive land use plan has this language that says, where legally allowed, the city should require avigation easements. But it doesn't provide much more detail than that. So they put it on the cities to determine, to answer that question, where legally allowed. So we did some analysis, we looked at other parts of state law, and we determined, along with this relationship with the noise impact, that avigation easements can be can be allowed unilaterally only in areas where noise is an identified impact of the airport. And so that is what we've drafted in the zoning ordinance to be consistent with the CLUP, so that our zoning ordinance says implements what the CLUP requires it to implement. It only affects a few parcels in the East Wisman area, because those are the only areas where approaching aircraft will generate, or taking off aircraft from Moffett Field will generate enough noise to be an impact. And so that's what the language in the zoning ordinance essentially says.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's it for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Ian. Any other questions? Commissioner Pham.
I did have a question for the Mountain View Transit Center regarding Caltrain, and if the city has had any update from them or any sort of information on what Caltrain is planning for that area.
Earlier in the year, in the lead up to the January and February meetings, we did engage with Caltrain at that time. They were undergoing an internal process to evaluate opportunities to increase revenue generation across their portfolio of properties. My understanding, I think from the April or May timeframe of this year, following those meetings, is that they'd concluded most or all of that process and identified the transit center as one of the primary locations to further evaluate for development and revenue generation opportunities. Beyond that, there was not a specific plan or timeline known by Caltrain at that point in time. We have expressed an interest to them to cooperate very closely and to coordinate on what their process and plans would be. And as it relates to the earlier discussion of Senate Bill 79 that's passed, there are new opportunities for development by transit districts. And so it may be possible that sort of the parameters for a future development there could be different than we're contemplating here under this framework.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dempsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question for staff, and really, I think, a point of clarification for the community and anybody who's listening. For the proposed new general plan land use designations, that all of the properties that are currently under discussion, except for the ones that I can't be here for those, how does the density bonus law apply to them? Does it apply to them all equally? And if you could just generally characterize what the density bonus law would mean for all of these new properties and their new designations.
Density bonus law does have some provisions related to transit access. So Again, it may be moot with the transit center under SB 79, but that would be the only site where density bonus law would treat, could provide opportunities that aren't available to the other properties. So the other properties would be treated similarly. It really is very developer-led, so it depends on how many affordable units the developer wants to provide in the project, what the ultimate outcome would be.
So the height increases and the accommodations and all of the various things that we've seen in other programs, those would show up the same here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Yen?
So along those lines then, would it be fair to say that the city would have less levers to pull if a state density bonus project did come in regards to retaining some of the commercial for any of the projects?
So we have had one general plan mixed-use village center project come through our process already. The project at 400 Moffett. They were approved, I think, in August. And yes, they did request waivers to reduce the amount of ground floor commercial that they are providing from the development standard, but they did not use waivers to eliminate it entirely. And that could be because of the way the standards are structured to kind of require this development type in concept within the zone. And that nobody has tried to waive that concept yet.
Okay.
Commissioner Cranston?
A philosophical question. So some of the communications regarding the Evendale essentially would permit higher density commercial instead of residential. Would we have to basically remove these sites from the site inventory if they were as attractive for commercial? It seemed like if it was more attractive for commercial than residential, that we could be going against the intention of the housing element and placing ourselves at the situation where we'd essentially be missing a requirement of the housing element and we'd have to go find space elsewhere. The goal of the housing element is to add residential, but there's been a request here to make commercial more attractive, which would seem to be a conflict.
Yeah, that's a very subtle argument, and I'm not sure that it would rise to the level of invalidating our site inventory. It is possible. That is certainly possible concern that somebody could raise in kind of addressing concerns about implementation of our housing element to HCD. So that is always a risk. We do have some analysis in our housing element sites inventory justification for assumptions about the mix of uses that might be built when a mix of uses are allowed. That was required for populating our sites inventory. Of course, I don't remember what those calculations were, years and years ago, but that could be something that we could rely on for further justifying the sites inventory, even if a mix of uses at higher intensities are allowed.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay. Let's move on to deliberations. Who'd like to opine first? Commissioner Cranston?
So I guess just in general, as a discussion, I don't see any downside of including the hashed areas in the change. it wasn't apparent to me that it would hurt in any way, and could actually create some more opportunity. So I'm inclined to support the staff approach of including those, was it 2 or 3 tiny parcels in the recommendation. Everything else that was consistent. I do want to thank staff for addressing the potential for alternative use at the Grant Road site. Thank you. But in general, that was I'd be inclined to go ahead and add the hashed out areas as staff's recommending.
Commissioner Yin?
Just to discuss the point of the hashed area. I was just curious. I'm glad to hear that given that the city says in the precise plan that they want that to be a mixed-use area and to have ground floor retail, I wouldn't want to, do anything that says, okay, or take any steps that allowed for an easy path for people to forego that requirement. I'm glad to hear that no one has taken advantage of that, even with the state density bonus law, but it's a possibility. And so I'm weighing internally, just sort of weighing, knowing that when a project comes forward, policy is very powerful, but it cannot design a building. And so very often what you get is based on the intent of the developer. If they wanted ground floor retail, you'd get it because they would design space that allowed for it. And maybe the city has some levers to pull a little bit to say, yeah, we'd like, we're really seeing that this is a desirable thing. Council might look favorably if you allowed enough room for X, Y, or Z. But if the intention is, we really don't want to do it, then even with all the wonderful economic development strategies, if it's not designed to house anything, you won't get any of it. So my internal struggle is, the state of things is that we don't, as a city, do not have as many tools available to work with developers in getting sort of some of the small things that we want. Not small, I don't want to say small. Some of the things that we want. And that's sort of soft, not hard policy, right? It's sort of just going with the culture, just working together for a goal that the city has decided that they wanted long ago. Because we have less power as the city to kind of work with a developer, I worry that there's the possibility that it will just be gone. And the question is, do we really want to ensure that small businesses can stay? They might not want to, but can they? If the choice is, well, we're going to allow for the developer to decide, and they can if they follow certain rules, then we won't get any of it. If the only way we have is to say we have to remove this from the site, the general plan right now, and it can change. If the priority is to retain what is there, then that is almost the only way to guarantee it. So it's really a matter, like for council, do they really want the small businesses to stay? If that's a priority, we leave it out. If it's a wish, we'd like, it may not happen. I understand that from a planning perspective, it is much easier to have the whole site available for housing. So that's my internal struggle. Because in projects that we've seen, it's less and less sort of availability for the city to work the soft power.
Chair, if I may.
Of course.
Thank you. Commissioner Yin, I think, raises some important points, and there are unknowns and risks related to state density bonus law. I think a different perspective on the challenge is really not so much related to that aspect, but it's the specific impact to specific businesses that are present currently, caused by the inducement, if we'll call it that, of higher economic opportunity driven by redevelopment of the site, and how those individual businesses would be displaced from the site during the project construction for a year, 2 years, however long, and maybe unable to find other suitable places in Mountain View at a rent or of a space type and location that suits them, or even if they could endure during that time, maybe couldn't afford to return because the rents would be higher for the new commercial space. So I think that's another aspect of this, and it's really this question of business generally, which probably will continue to remain, a viable space in these projects in the future, but probably for different businesses, and it's really the impact to those existing, commonly local small businesses that's, I think, the essence of the issue from staff's perspective, and that's why this sort of hinges on that aspect, where removing some of the development pressure from these 3 parcels is one approach, and one of the very few approaches that we have to offer at this time.
Commissioner Yen?
I was done, thank you.
Okay, sure. Anyone else? Nope. Okay. I agree with Commissioner Yen. I thought about that too, because there's an inherent tension there, and I'm not sure which way to go. And so I had to look at it more from the perspective like, okay, well, what can I do? And so I thought, well, the only thing I can do right now is not look at it from a policy perspective, but more from a zoning perspective. And if I look at it that way, then I agree with what's been presented. From the policy perspective, I would like to make the exception, but that's for City Council to try and figure out one way or another. And that's the part of all this right now that it's kind of like when the folks were here earlier, and they realized something, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right to us. And that's what, when I read this, it hit me that way too. So I know what you mean, Commissioner Yan, from that perspective, and it's hard to come to resolutions or something like that because you just don't know, and not having that certainty of what's going to happen in all this process is what sometimes holds me back a little bit to always fully support what the staff recommends, right? And so hence the questioning. It's not because of lack of trust. It's more just because of the what ifs. So if anyone has any other comments, then great. If not, then Commissioner Dempsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So let me try to keep this brief. I'm going to be supporting the staff recommendations today. I think in many ways this vote is a bit pro forma. I think we've already committed to what we've committed to in the housing element, and we've got to get that done. So, to me, it's pretty cut and dried. I think the one thing that I want to say, and maybe this is a broader comment about densification and growth in Mountain View, and it is simply this. If we as a community want greater density, and I understand that we do as a policy, if we want neighborhoods to embrace not only that density, but the humans that come with it, the people that move in, the people that become our neighbors, then we, as a city, have to do a better job of managing the externalities, the problems that come with denser living. Because if you wonder what the fuel is for people pushing back against densification, the fuel is problems that they see every day. And here with the Planning Commission, we make plans, we make maps, but the map is not always the territory. And I can speak with personal experience that some of the things that our neighbors are talking about are real. And so I would simply make the plea to the city that when people come in and tell us they're actually having real problems right now, that we listen seriously to that. And maybe we care, maybe we don't, maybe it's a small problem in a small part of the city. Okay, you can say that. But that is where opposition to growth comes from. It's not a theoretical or ideological thing. It's because of problems they experience when they're trying to take their kids to school, when they walk out their front door. So that was a lot longer than I expected it to be. Let's just take that very, very seriously when people come in and say that stuff, because it's for real. With that, I'll be supporting the measure.
Thank you, Commissioner Dempsey. Anyone else? No. Oh, here we go. Commissioner Donahue.
I will also be supporting the measure. I agree that there are real problems and that they need to be taken seriously. I mean, it's clear. I think that though sometimes, I mean, sometimes there's existing problems. There's people parking in front of fire hydrants and things like that, which, you know, it happens once, you're annoyed. It happens, you know, once a week. That this is really a problem. It happens, you know, 5 days a week. What the heck is going on around here? So I think that that definitely, and I do think that in general the city is pretty good at listening to those types of things and addressing, but of course it's not perfect. And I think that the goal of the entire organization should be to really strive to address these kinds of problems. As far as this specific, like the Evandale area and the hashed area that we're talking about, I think that there are, I am concerned about the loss of small businesses, but that's not limited to those parcels. The medical offices that we talked about earlier, you know, we didn't really talk about trying to retain them. But you know, those kinds of things affect kind of everything that we do, and I think that having a more of a citywide approach is important, and kind of spot zoning 3 parcels to try to deal with 3 specific businesses is kind of not the right approach. We need to think more systematically. So I will be supporting the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Yin?
Oh, I was just going to say that in the staff report, it says that those sites actually are not required for the housing element. That's just one point. It's okay. I mean, everyone can still have their, you know, opinions. That's not a big deal. And I do understand that it's just easier to plan. I think, you know, I'm not necessarily fighting really hard for it. It's just still the internal struggle with the hatched area is that, one, what I just said, it's not required. And 2, the other businesses and those addresses are in the housing element. You know? So that's why we're not discussing those, or I'm not bringing it up. This is an opportunity, and I'm just putting it out there. Really, it's for council. It's up to them. You know, I haven't seen that many people come forward saying we really want to keep those businesses. I'm just going with what was in the precise plan for that neighborhood. So I'm just putting it out there. I understand it's just cleaner to go for it. I just wanted to discuss. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Yin. But on that note, I'm just going to quickly, I have to bring this up. Did any one of those business owners write in and opine on what their feelings were to the proposal that we're discussing now?
No, we did not receive any comments from the businesses or concerns when we hand-delivered the notices.
And were the notices just in English, or were they in English and Spanish? Or
They were just in English, but the business owners I spoke with personally spoke English.
Okay, just checking, that's all. Great. Commissioner Cranston, thank you.
That's inconsistent with my reading of one of the emails. One of the businesses that actually asked that the height density for the commercial be raised was the unit that's farthest, closest to the 101. Okay, so that business and the hotel across the street, not the gentleman that was here, asked for the density of the area to be made for commercial equal to the density of the residential. And so I think their request was not to make it residential, but to allow them to build to the same density as the residential space.
Yeah,
As
and
the market player. And so there was a letter. It wasn't asking for it to be included. It was, it came across as, I want to be able to build my business bigger, and by not changing the commercial areas, you don't allow me to do that. So there was a letter, but that it was not, it was purely a commercial side, which might actually be more supportive of Mr. Yin's concern that they actually want to do something, but they need more, they need the ability to have more density to be able to make it viable from a commercial standpoint.
That's right. Thanks for bringing that up, Commissioner Yen.
But they weren't in the hatched area, right?
They are. The hotel is not in the hashed area, but we put the map up, Krishna. It's the one that's on the
corner.
On the corner, just north of the street. Okay. Yeah, there's three properties. The one farthest to the north is the one that has the marketplace. No, it's on whatever that darn street is. Up. There you go, right there. You just passed it. It's the marketplace. The market is the one right there. Yeah.
They're the ones.
It's a market, and them along with a letter from the hotel across the street said, we would like you to make the density available for commercial equal to the density for residential. The one that's in the hotel is in our area, but the other one is not. So it indicated to me that they wanted to actually the opportunity to develop their space on a commercial basis more densely than it is today.
I think that might have been the second batch of emails that we received. I'm not sure, but it looks like, I'm so sorry. What is your name next to Eric?
Krisha.
Krisha. I think because you were receiving all the emails, right? Because they were addressing it to you. So, but I saw that you wanted to opine on something that Commissioner Cranston was talking about. Okay, no problem.
Okay, well then as far as discussion goes, then it brings into what you were asking earlier about the balance of housing to commercial and whether or not it would sort of go against what the housing element was seeking if we were to. But wait a minute, this is just to allow for current, not for future. The discussion of leaving the hatched areas out is mainly.
Right? Sure you're asking me.
So earlier you had asked about whether or not allowing for the commercial to increase would be going against the housing element's intent. Right? And Eric had answered, it's a hard one to answer. It could be seen as subtle. But the discussion of whether or not to include the hatched areas. Christian, you were saying that really we're not talking about increasing their ability to grow their business. It's about whether or not we retain what is there now.
Right. I think the issue, as we've tried to frame it, with this question of whether to include or exclude the crosshatched parcels is the question of the impacts to the existing businesses. Mm-hmm. These sites likely would have a commercial component if they were to redevelop, but the issue is those existing businesses maybe are less likely to actually return and be the businesses that are located there. And so it's that small business retention, right, preservation question.
Right. Okay, I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah,
on
and these
what
parcels are
saying and how it interacts with the decision.
Right, and the issue is that these parcels are not required to be included to achieve the housing element requirement.
Okay.
So there's some discretion there to exclude if there's a perception that that would better preserve the existing small businesses, or include them if business generally or maximizing housing opportunities is the policy preference.
Okay, thank you. All clear.
Commissioner Cranston?
So the reason for my question is the gentleman that spoke today, he owns, I think, the property that's all the way down, all the way to the left. One of the letters was for the hotel that's way over next to the Chevron station, okay? And it was co-signed by the owner of the property that's in the hashed area. What they asked for in their letter and what he's essentially asking for is allow me to develop those areas as commercial at the same density as you're allowing the residential, okay? The proposal from staff is that we allow residential, but we don't change the commercial density at all. Okay? And when I said I didn't see any downside, in my mind, I looked at it and said, okay, they're actually going to get more ability to have more density in the area. It's mixed use, so they may decide that they want to have a bigger retail space below, and they want to have some apartments up above. So it actually gave them more flexibility than what they have today. It's entirely possible that they may say, I don't want any commercial at all, and it's just going to be over, so you're right. But since our objective here was not to rezone to make the area denser in general, I was not necessarily supportive of the idea of changing the, whatever it was, CO or whatever the heck it is, to allow it to be equal to the 55-foot that's what's proposed here. But by incorporating it all, it, in my mind, gave those three more options for their space, because right now they're limited by what they have today, and this would allow something beyond that without us saying we're going to change the CO to the 55. So that was, I didn't articulate that before, but that was my, when I said I didn't think there was a downside, I actually thought there might be a little bit of upside. That would give them more options than they have with as it's proposed today. We've not discussed the idea of trying to go back to council and say, change the CO to 55 feet as well, because I don't think that's what we're here to do. So that's a very long answer to.
No, it's okay. No, it's very helpful. Okay. I'm just trying to put all the pieces together with all the questions for the discussion purposes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Commissioner Donnie?
I think Commissioner Cranston basically said what I was thinking.
Great. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? If not, now would be a great time to entertain a motion. Great. So moved by Commissioner Cranston and seconded by Commissioner Fan. That we, and I believe we would like to have Commissioner Cranston read the language.
He took the shorter one, so I get the longer one. Right? I can't read quite as fast as the vice chair.
Again, we have some special recommendations. Yeah, it's going to be different than what the content of those slides is. We'll bring it up on the screen real quick here. Just to exclude the Cuesta and Miramonte sites that Commissioner Dempsey can't vote on.
The presentation copy has it?
The presentation copy has the full titles, but they've already voted on the Cuesta and Miramonte sites, so we have the recommendation excluding those sites on the slide here.
Okay. Okay, so I move that the Environmental Planning Commission, number one, recommend the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View adopting general plan amendment to update the land use and design element and modify the general plan land use map to change the land use designation for the following properties to implement the housing element program 1.1G. Number one, 830, 835, 850, 859, 870, 889, 897 Leon Drive, and 355 Fairchild Drive. Is that? Okay. From neighborhood commercial to general mixed use, 677 to 699 Calderon Avenue, from neighborhood commercial to neighborhood mixed use. 4 Grant Road, from low density residential to medium high density residential, as recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission on January 24th, 2023. The City Council certified that the 2023 to 2031 housing element update and value impact report adopted by Resolution 18755 pursuant to the CEQA guidelines sections 15168, 15162, 15163. None of the circumstances necessitating further CEQA review are present. Number 2, recommend the City Council adopt an ordinance of the City of Mountain View amending the Charter 36 zoning of the City Code to implement subtask G of the Housing Element 1.1, requiring navigation easements pursuant to the Monmouth Field Airfield Comprehensive Land Use Plan, recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission to be read in title only, further reading waived. Exhibit 2, the staff report. Page 2. And that the Environment Planning Commission recommended City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mountain View amending the P32 Evendale Precise Plan to implement Housing Element Program 1.1G and make other clarifying changes as recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission to be read title only, further reading waived. Exhibit 3 to the staff report. Number 4, recommend the City Council adopt a resolution of the City of Mountain View amending the P26 Grant Martin's Precise Plan to implement the Housing Element Program 1.1G and make clarifying changes to recommend the environment as recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission. Exhibit 4 to the staff report. And 5, recommend the City Council adopt a resolution of the City Council of Mountain View amending one Precise Plan P18 Evendale Corridor Precise Plan to implement the Housing Element Program 1.1G and make other clarifying changes as recommended by the Environmental Planning Commission on Exhibit 5 of the staff report. And I really need to remember to remove my glasses if I have to do these the next time, because it's hard to read. So.
Great, let's move on to the vote.
The motion carries 7 yes.
Great, thank you, commissioners. Thank you, team. Thank you, staff. And thank you to everyone who showed up and spoke up, and for everyone who called in and gave us their perspective on what they thought. Moving on to commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports.
Chair, if I may, we may just have to take the vote on item 3.1, minutes approval, one more time. I think Commissioner Pham might have accidentally voted on it, but she was not on the commission at that time. So just for the record, we'll just have to.
Yeah, I apologize. I should have recused myself for that one. Abstained.
Sure, okay. So let's go back. Before we go to point 6, commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports, we will then go back for the record to clarify Section 3 minutes approval, 3.1 Environmental Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 5th, 2025. EPC clerk, can you please remind me who was the mover and who seconded?
The mover was Bill Cranston and seconded by Hank Dempsey.
Okay, and that was to approve the Environmental Planning Commission minutes of February 5, 2025. If we can redo the vote, please. And if not, we can do this by hand, and we'll make a note that.
Yeah, I think if we can just do it by.
Okay, so let's if we don't mind, let's.
But just by hand?
Sure, let's go by hand. Why not? Okay. So,
Commissioner Pham?
Abstain.
Commissioner Donahue?
Yes.
Vice Chair Nunez?
Yep.
Chair Gutierrez?
Yes.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
Commissioner Yin?
Yes.
And Commissioner Cranston?
Yes.
The motion carries 6 yea and 1 abstain.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Pham, for that. That was awesome. Okay, now let's move on to point 6, commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports.
Thank you, Diana Pancholi, Principal Planner and EPC Liaison. So just a few quick announcements on the November 19th meeting will be canceled as there are no discussion items scheduled as of now. The next EPC meeting will be scheduled for December 3rd, 2025. And lastly, just an update on the EPC commission positions. City Council at the October 21st meeting recommended to for 2 positions. One of them, reinstating Commissioner Tina Pham for another term, and then a new member, Shweta Subramanian, for another place since Commissioner Yin is going to term out. The final vote, council will take the final vote on the appointment recommendations at the December 9th meeting. So, yeah, just a short announcement. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Cranston?
Yeah, so I have a request for the future. The governor signed SB 79 a few weeks ago, and Mr. Murdoch suggested that we don't have to do anything until after it becomes the law, and I am not comfortable with that. We have the downtown precise plan, we have the Moffett precise plan, and we have the historic district that all are touched on by this law. I realize that staff likes the idea of being very certain and having I's dotted and T's crossed, but we also need to be able to react to things as they come up, and this is something that's coming. It's already been approved, and I don't believe that we should be waiting until later. The way the law is worded, it absolutely will affect any evaluation I make of the Moffett precise plan, the downtown precise plan, or anything further on the historic ordinance. And so I don't believe it's necessarily a separate project. I think it's in the context of what we already have. But I would like to request that staff come back with what you know today. I'm not expecting a perfect answer. HCD is probably still working on what it is, but we have now, I guess, 2 more meetings till the end of the year. I would like to request that staff come back before the end of the year with your analysis of what we know today of what SB 79 does, what we know about what maybe some other jurisdictions are doing, and how it might tie into these 3 projects that are already under the way. I don't think that we should wait until July to figure out what the answer is. I think this is a case where the environment has changed. We didn't know about this when we defined these 3 projects, but it is changing and it's going to affect how we vote. So I would like to request that, and I don't know whether my other fellow commissioners feel the same way, but I'm not expecting staff to come back with this is the answer to be all end all. What I'm looking for is, what do we know right now? How might this affect these things that we're looking at, so that we can then look at it and say, all right, we could have a discussion on whether to recommend to council that it really be looked at in the context of these 3 plans before July 1st or 31st, not after. That's my request.
Thank you, Commissioner Cranston. Yeah, I'll follow up with, I think that's a great idea. I like that approach. I know we've had a chance here to be part of the team for a little bit of time now, and I think if we are looking at it from the perspective of being proactive to understand what it is that we can do to facilitate discussion prior to things becoming more of an issue, and then that way helping out not just the city team and the staff, but also the commission itself, and subsequently then the city council in general to look at it from that vantage point. I think that's what we're here for, to try and do just that. So if we can get support for this, I know you have my support, so I see also Commissioners Donahue and Yen. I'll cede the floor now to Commissioner Donahue. Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify one point that Commissioner Cranston made. I didn't state that there's nothing to be done prior to July 1st of 2026. I was stating earlier that the law takes effect at that time. Indeed, there's a lot of work the city needs to do between now and then to understand the implications of SB 79. And indeed, that work has started. I'm not sure, I can commit to providing an update as requested to the commission prior to us having an opportunity to provide the same update to City Council. We're working hard on preparing that update at this time, including potential implications for the Moffett Boulevard Precise Plan and Downtown Precise Plan work. And so we're gearing up to have that update provided to council and to receive direction on some of the key points that affect city process and work that's underway. And I think once we have the direction from council, it's likely an opportune time for us to update the EPC on what that direction is and the work that we may be carrying out in response to that direction.
Great, thank you, Mr. Murdoch. So a question for you. By when do you plan to have that be ready to be presented?
We're working with the city manager currently to identify a specific date. Sometime in the middle of Q1 2026 is what I'm anticipating at this time. Late January, early February timeframe, approximately.
Okay, that'd be great, because I know traditionally, I mean, you've noticed this, we tend to have meetings that are canceled during that period of time. And so it'd be great to actually discuss that during that period of time so that we take advantage of the time that we do have for scheduled meetings. Let's see, Commissioner Donahue?
So we had a public comment at the beginning about SB 79 and the downtown, and I'm concerned. He said that the city of Palo Alto has already authorized having an alternative plan in place. I don't know if the timelines he gave were accurate. I think he said 6 months plus 2 weeks or something like that. That might be kind of a worst case scenario. I don't know. But I am concerned that if it's the middle of Q1, that we get started, then the law takes effect on July 1st. Somebody decides to bulldoze the 100 block of Castro Street or something. Then there's kind of nothing that the city can do. It's kind of like, the builder's remedy type of deal. So it's better to get ahead of that. And in our capacity as advising the city council, I would like to be able to discuss and potentially formally recommend some action to the city council. I know that that we need to understand exactly what the law involves and exactly what. I mean, we don't have to understand what the alternative plan would be, obviously, but I think being able to discuss and try to get that alternative plan process in motion earlier would be the best move. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Donahue. Commissioner Yen?
Yeah, I'm in support of the idea that's been brought forward. I feel like, I think Livable Mountain View had sent slideshow PDF prior to the meeting, and in my understanding of SB 79, it's, I think the deadlines we need to lock down and understand better. I think there are some maps that we need to know, like what the areas actually are affected, and I agree with Commissioner Donahoe that it could very easily, we have no control, have a builder's remedy situation in our historic downtown. And I think, if SB 79 comes out, it's not like we get notices every, area gets notices saying your property might be affected. And we saw today a little bit of what happens when the realization comes forward. I think that would be such a big loss that the city would really turn out. But there's nothing that could be done at that point. So the sooner we act to prepare, the better. And if we need to make recommendations that if staff can't do it, given some of the responsibilities, that we go ahead and hire consultants to help in order to get this done.
Thank you, Commissioner Yen. Commissioner Pham?
I agree with a lot of what our fellow commissioners have mentioned, and I would support having staff look into something sooner rather than later. I also, in my understanding of SB 79, is that it may cover areas not just covered by downtown and Moffett plan. So I urge staff, when you're trying to prep, to brief council to also consider the other areas already identified and weigh in whether that should be included in a alternative plan, and also if an alternative plan is the way to go forward as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Nunez or Vice Chair Nunez?
I think this is not necessary at all. I think that if we want to get that report, we could either go to that city council meeting, or we could inform ourselves. We could look it up. We could, we're all very smart people. We got appointed to this for a reason. And I think staff works really hard. I don't always agree with them. I don't always think that they're like, working toward the outcomes I want, even though they're neutral and what have you, but they're like so strapped for time. I think we should just take the responsibility, go research it. If we have questions for an agenda item that is coming up, and then we can ask that. I am loath to like put anything on like staff, especially because it's the grunt people at the bottom who are doing this, and I think we can put our own time into this.
Commissioner Cranston?
Is there a reason that we can't provide a recommendation at the time that you're presenting to council? You're taking the approach that EPC doesn't have an opportunity to weigh into what you present to council. I guess I view that that's part of our role.
Sure, and I respect that perspective. I think the issue is the compressed time frame under which we have to do our work, and then what the sequence of meetings would even be to get something to the EPC in time to provide input and then prepare that for City Council in time for their meeting. And so I'm not able to commit to that opportunity at this point in time on this particular item. I'd very much imagine that whatever the council's direction is flowing out of their presentation, that there would be an opportunity for EPC to have input on shaping what the response and next steps would be.
Commissioner Donahue?
Okay. The main thing I want to be able to do is to advise the city council. So like having it on our agenda so that we can discuss things and make a formal recommendation. Not that we I mean, yes, we can learn about the details of SB 79 on our own. We can go to the city council meeting, but if we go to the city council meeting, we can't, as a body, advise the city council about that. So I think I can go stand there just like all of us can, but obviously, as a body, we have more impact, and it also involves the public process, right? We get input from the public. We gather all that, we synthesize it, and then we make a recommendation to the city council. And that's kind of what I'm interested in having the ability to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Donahue. Vice Chair Nunez?
I mean, that sounds like an agendized item, and which, I mean, for like just understand, I'm just gonna like strongly oppose this, and again, if we want to get informed, if everyone wants to vote yes on this, that's fine, but I think that staff is not able to commit to something. We're not able to provide clear scope on what the outcome is. It seems like putting out an agendized like official item for something that we can do and participate in as well as members of the public as well, and even have more ability to have the ear of council as a whole or as individuals. It just seems like we talk about staff efficiency, and we're trying to introduce inefficiency, and so I don't understand the inconsistency.
Commissioner Yen?
Yeah, well, to my point, if staff doesn't have the time, then maybe we hire a consultant. But I agree. I think even though we have the ability as individuals to make comments to City Council if it were to arise before them, I think as a body, it is that much more effective. And personally, to me, I think it's such a big law, and I understand its intention. I think that some of the fallout potential is great enough to warrant this being on the agenda for City Council to decide. We make a recommendation, they have the power to say yes or no, and that this is just our way, if the majority of us vote this way, that we feel like it's important enough to put on their agenda. And so I would be in favor of that, because it's more than the sum of our parts, I think, by doing this.
Thank you, Commissioner Young. Commissioner Dempsey?
maybe I can back clean up here. This being item 6, which is just individual comments, not something that we're voting on, not something that was agendized. I will simply say, I think you've probably got a good sense of how people here are feeling. I myself would probably ask just for a sort of a verbal update at the December 3rd. You know, I probably would ask the director that, like, hey, tell us what your latest thinking is, and that would probably be sufficient for me. Because I do think it's highly relevant, but again, I think I don't want to create work unless that work is going to be impactful. And I think you now know that we think it's impactful, and we, you know, I myself trust you to come up with the most efficient way to help us be impactful on that. And that's it.
Great. So then that leads to Commissioner Yen.
Oh, that's left over again.
Oh, right on. No worries.
The
Okay.
withdrawing is...
So having said that, that leads to my perspective on this as chair. So question number 1, how do we bring up something that we would like to be agendized? What is the protocol for that? That's the first question.
Yeah, I think the typical process is that the chair and the EPC liaison work on the format for the structure of upcoming meeting agendas. There is some judgment and input that may be needed from staff as to our ability to support particular requests. I think I've tried to make myself as clear as I could that I'm not sure that I can commit to providing the update of the sort that's been requested. And there's certainly not a range of policy options or inputs to provide to the City Council at this time on this subject matter. It's really a high-level, significant policy-level discussion that the City Council needs to have to direct staff resources to weigh their own council work plan priorities and other housing element obligations that the City Council is responsible for prioritizing and resourcing. And so I think it's for those reasons I've tried to subtly indicate it, but maybe I'm being a little more forthright at this point, that the message is clear. We will do what we can, but I'm not able to commit to us having a particular agenda item or update at this time, given the myriad competing workload demands on staff that we're trying to accomplish between now and Thanksgiving holiday period, Christmas, New Year holiday period, and then gearing up for the City Council update in late January, early February.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Murdoch. So I'm not going to go off on a speech. Just quick points. I think we understand right now Commissioner Kranz's perspective, and the majority of the commissioners are in agreement of wanting to have some sort of update. I think we should look at this as a learning experience, right? Tonight, I was off my game, and I tried to get back into it because, you know, life happens. But let's try and think about these things as a team together to try and think ahead of the what-ifs, because right now we're looking at the future possibilities of what if this happens sooner rather than later. And if we have a competing city, if we have a neighboring city like Palo Alto already on it, we missed it. We didn't have that vision to be able to bring that into play. And let's learn from it so that we're not in this situation again come sometime in the future. Because we don't mean ill intent by that. And yeah, we understand the holidays are coming up. And I've had my life has been, I've been privileged to work as a paralegal at major law firms. Hank's a JD. I wish I would have gone to law school. It didn't happen for me, but I do know this. I've missed a lot of Thanksgivings. I missed a lot of holidays, did a lot of overtime, trying to get this done for our high-priced clients so that we could win, so that we can inform them of what their options were, so that we have better informed decisions in the end and best represent their needs. Not everyone can do that for whatever reason because we all have different paths. And this city team's staff, I trust your judgment, and we just want to elevate the game. We want you to help us to get to that point where we don't have a missed opportunity, because the last thing we need is to have something like that, and then something comes in, and before you know it, we lost that chance to be able to deliberate and be part of what we were appointed to do, which is to get feedback, to understand that feedback from the team who are experts, and then to present recommendations to the council as an advisory body. And I think we all can agree on that front. So having said that, let's adjourn the meeting at 9:20 p.m. Thank you, everyone.